Always a pleasure when we can catch up with our senior U.S. Senator, Bill Cassidy. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Hey, Matt, Jim, I am great. How are y'all?
Good.
We are doing fine. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you're doing well because you're in a stranger place than we are.
Yes.
The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, there you
go. I know that it's been beautiful weather for the most part in Washington these last couple of weeks, but how would you assess, before we get to more detailed questions, I know that you guys are back in after a little bit of an absence. How would you assess how it's going so far?
So, a couple things. We've consistently continued to appoint President Trump's appointees. And frankly, you may be asking why 3 or 4 years into the term are we having to still do that? And there's a lot of delaying action by the other side at first, and so now there's still a big chunk to do, like ambassadors who've been nominated since 2 years ago. But we're getting those done. I'm working on surprise medical billing and on how do we lower the cost of medications. And so if we do that, and that's going to be bipartisan, if we get that through, I'll feel pretty good about how things go.
Yeah, no, all of that sounds good, and I'm sure the other side is trying to defeat the appointment of the ambassador of Iceland and places like that. It's real important that we're going there. But anyway, tell us about the. I know that you're working right now on some of the anti-drilling legislation, or you're trying to fight some of the House Democrats on that. What's going on there?
Yeah, so the House passed legislation, you see it echoed in the Democratic presidential candidates, that would ban fracking, attempt to take away fossil fuel from the United States, not the rest of the world, but from the United States, and just totally disregarding the jobs that would be destroyed, the fact that industry would be forced to migrate to China and India and Mexico, where they use coal oftentimes, for example, China, and so therefore you have greater, and they turn off their scrubbers. We use coal and we turn on environmental scrubbers. They use it and let the SOx and NOx and other and pollutants spew into the air, and that global greenhouse gas emissions worsen. So you kill our economy, you make our rivals stronger, and you worsen global greenhouse gas emissions. I'm going to push back against that as hard as I can.
We are talking with Senator Bill Cassidy. So you mentioned China, which when we talk about China nowadays, we always think about trade. I know that you have been on this bandwagon or on this watch about combating trade-based money laundering. What is this all about? Because I don't really think the general public understands much about it.
Yeah, but what the general public knows is that we've got a problem with Americans dying from drug overdoses. 66,000 Americans died last year and will this year from drug overdoses, more than died in 10 years of combat in Vietnam. Now think to yourself, okay, wait a second. Somebody from China or Mexico or elsewhere bringing drugs into our United States, somebody overdoses, but they've sold the drugs, they have a profit. How do they get the money out to buy the next batch of drugs to finance their operations and bring it back in? They do it through legitimate trade. And so somehow they misinvoice or double invoice or somehow otherwise move dollars out of our country to perpetuate the cycle, and more Americans die. We're trying to stop that version of money laundering, to shut down the financing. It's not the supply of drugs or the demand for drugs, it's the financing for drugs. We think that's the most effective way to help our country get over this problem.
Well, and another version is you hit a switch and it's gone. The money's gone like in a blink of an eye. How do you stop that?
You're totally right, Jim. But you still have to account for it. And so if you combine all the resources of our federal government, you can do this. Now, the problem, it takes 7 different federal agencies coordinating to make it happen. I can't get my 3 kids in the car for a trip to the beach. And so how do we coordinate 7 different agencies? And so one thing we've been able to do, and Senator Kennedy helped with this, et cetera, is get some money in the budget so that we can begin doing a government assessment of what resources we have and what do we need to do to better coordinate those resources to go after this money laundering.
We are talking with Senator Bill Cassidy. We'll take a phone call or two before we let him out of here in just a moment. But, Senator, I know that you've had to answer this question a lot, particularly over the last 2 weeks, but a lot of central Louisiana citizens are kind of jumping on this bandwagon, per se, and asking the same questions. Obviously, a lot of state radio programs like Moon Griffon and others, who are friends of us, by the way, have gotten on the national congressional delegation about not getting more involved in the gubernatorial race for one or the other of the Republican candidates. Why have you decided to kind of sit out this until the runoff?
Yeah, I'm not sitting it out. I'm helping our Republican candidates. I'm not endorsing one or the other, and so that somewhat limits what you can do. But that's just a talking point for somebody who's got to fill up volume on a show. That's not reality. And so we have supported those candidates. I continue to urge folks who care about the future of our state to go out and vote for one of the Republicans. But I did make a commitment to them both that I would not endorse either. And maybe that's where the rub is. Others have endorsed one or the other, and they expect everybody else to endorse the same person they've endorsed.
Well, I'll take it a little broader than that. You should vote for who you think is most qualified, and that can include a Democrat too. I know you don't. I know you don't include Democrats, but I do, and you include everybody. And you ought to be able to pick who you want, not who somebody tells you to vote for.
Oh, I get that, Jim. I guess I'm just going after, who has a philosophy of government that I think would be better for the future of our state.
Exactly, but there are two philosophies at least.
All right, well, let's take a couple of phone calls quickly for the senator. Go ahead, caller. You're on with Senator Cassidy. Fire away.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for taking my call. I hear you talk often about bringing down cost of prescription drugs or medical procedures and health care. But as a physician, I think you know the story of procedures that aren't touched by insurance or governmental price regulations, like LASIK eye surgery. I know someone who had that, and it used to be that only the wealthy could get it. But because of innovation, because the wealthy did purchase it, the price has come down. Why don't I hear more Republicans touting that success and applying that to getting the government out of the regulations out of the healthcare industry and prescription drugs so that the competition can drive the price down? And I'll hang up and listen to you.
Thank you.
Hey, man, we are brothers by a different mother. I talk about that all the time. About LASIK surgery, I know exactly how much it costs because it's on the billboard, and it's $375 an eye with a little bit more for astigmatism. And that's an example of price transparency driving more accessibility. And so I've introduced legislation that would begin to promote price transparency. There's something on my website, Cassidy.senate.gov, and making healthcare affordable again. You click on it, and we got a big piece about price transparency where we talk about LASIK surgery. And I'll say the Trump administration is beginning to implement this idea, asking that hospitals publish their prices. I'm with you, brother.
All right, let's take one more call for the senator. Good morning. You're on with Senator Cassidy. Go ahead.
Hey, Senator Cassidy. God bless you and yours, Matt and Jim. My name's Cornelius White, and I was just wondering, I met you at the North Shore Tea Party when you were running for Congress. Senator, when you were running for senator. Ben Carson was there and stuff like that. And the only thing I'm asking, and just like Moon's been my friend for 40 years, I wish you would support Ralph. You've known Ralph a good long time, and I know you said you just want to let people decide, but seems like Respondas decided for us because of what he said. And I know Colonel Rob Maness in Gator Pack. Gator Pack said he supports Common Core. He went up to the legislature. I know you don't support Common Core, so that's all I'm saying. God bless you.
Thank you.
And be careful.
Let me ask you something, Senator. Have you known Eddie Risponi or Ralph Abraham? Which one is the longer?
Oh, probably Ralph. No, probably Eddie, because I met Ralph 6 years ago when we met.
That's what I thought.
And I met Eddie when I ran for state senate. They're both good men, and you could find something about either that you didn't like, because that's the nature of it. I've got that. My wife finds several things about me she doesn't like, and it's been 30 years. But Cornelius, I kind of remember our meeting because I like your name, Cornelius, and there's not that many Corneliuses in the world.
Yeah, he's one of a kind, I tell you. Senator, listen, thank you so much, and Sean and your staff are always great to work with. We really appreciate your time. Continue the good fight up there, my man.
Thank you both. See you all.
Thank you, sir.